This is the IST Health Tip of the Day. I'm your host, Roberto Parker. This podcast, we tackle the tough questions related to exercise, training for athletes, human performance, biochemical, biomechanical dysfunctions, problems that sometimes you have questions about that you don't quite know the answer to. So stay tuned, enjoy, take good notes, and God bless. Okay, what is a perfect hormonal cocktail? Well, like any cocktail beverage, which I'm not very knowledgeable in myself, as most of you probably know, in order to get the perfect beverage, you have to mix the proper ingredients and the right amount of ingredients. Otherwise, you compromise the beverage. Well, the body's the same way. The two most important hormones that I look at when I'm evaluating you, and I've been doing a lot of research in biochemistry in the past 10 to 15 years. A lot of podcasts, going to workshops, reading a lot of books, listening to some of the best practitioners out there in the world. So I've learned a lot. But there's always more to learn. Okay? The more you know, the more you don't know, as the old saying goes. But I think I know more than the average person. But the two most important ones are insulin and cortisol. Insulin, main job is to store nutrients, to send nutrients to the tissues of the body via the glucose. That's what it does. Now, my last podcast I did with Chris Whiting, the Health Detective Show, we talked about insulin resistance. Listen to that. A lot of good information on there. But insulin's main job is to act as a storage hormone. Now, which is made by the pancreas, by the way. Now, cortisol. Cortisol's main job is to battle stress in your body. Cortisol will help to promote inflammation in a good way and also fight against stress in the body. So when you have various micro tears in your body, let's say you've sprained an ankle or you worked out too hard, your body always goes through a series of micro tears. Well, cortisol has to do its job in order to reduce some of those inflammatory things that are going on. Now, the problem with cortisol is that if your body is chronically stressed, physically, emotionally, or chemically, you will have chronic inflammation, which can lead to some very nasty metabolic disorders of the body. So we want to really look at the nitty-gritty, at the foundation of what insulin is doing in your system and what cortisol is doing in your system, and how those two components are playing in the same sandbox. Now, the next one is testosterone and estrogen. Now, here's the thing about testosterone and estrogen. Men have low T, women might have elevated estrogen or reduced estrogen, or maybe the two estrogen dominant for the ladies. All that's important. But typically what happens is when your cortisol and your insulin is out of balance, that affects testosterone and estrogen in not a very nice fashion. In other words, adversely. So once again, the core is your insulin and your cortisol. Now the next one up the ladder is leptin and ghrelin. Now you probably never heard of ghrelin. Ghrelin, believe it or not, is a hunger hormone that can get out of balance, once again, with insulin and cortisol, where you have food cravings. Believe it or not, you have hunger hormones and you have satiety hormones. Now, leptin is kind of related to insulin in a way, because leptin actually stores fat on you. And believe it or not, when you become overweight and too fat, your body keeps producing more and more leptin. And so when leptin gets out of balance as well, you're going to have food cravings. So you don't want that. Okay? So leptin also is like a storage type of hormone, very similar to insulin. Now, all of these things can lead to insulin sensitivity in a good way if you balance them right, or insulin resistance in a bad way, which can throw off a complete hormonal balance in your body, which can lead to things like leaky gut, joint disorders, skin disorders, chronic inflammation, lupus, cancer, diabetes, thyroiditis, The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. So the perfect cocktail is when growth hormone, cortisol, and your sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen are working together, and insulin in there also, working together in a cohesive fashion. Now, when cortisol and insulin are predominant and working together and are elevated, that's not a good thing, because that's going to bring on a lot of metabolic disorders that I just talked about. So once again, the good part, growth hormone, working with cortisol, working with insulin, and working with your sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. When that cocktail is mixed just right, you're going to have good muscle growth, reduced aging, a healthy skin, a good outlook on life, and even your brain is going to function better. Now, on the flip side of that is when cortisol and insulin are elevated and chronically elevated, along with glucose, we'll throw that in there, elevated, you're going to have all kinds of problems, all kinds of issues. And it may not show up today, it may not show up tomorrow, but things are building up and manifesting themselves within your system, and trust me, it will show up eventually. The chickens will come home to roost. So take that for what it's worth, guys. I hope this has helped you. If you need any help with anything in your training, exercise, dietary programs, give me a call. I do menu planning with you. I'll do a dietary plan with you. We'll sit down and we'll plot out a plan for you day by day, week by week, month by month, based on your metabolic type. Metabolic type meaning neurotransmitters and your blood type, basically. And your motivational type. Are you motivated? Okay, I can also work with you in virtual consultation, virtual training, physical consultation in person, or physical training in person as well, group or private. So give me a call. Check out my number here on the screen and at the end of this podcast today. So guys, take care and God bless. This has been another IST Health Tip of the Day. Bye-bye.